Hello, my name is Robb Prasanna, and this is HardConvos. If you disagree with anything that I say in this video, please let me know. We live in a polarized country.
Politics in America are more polarized today than they have been since 1879.
Now we can see this because number one, Congress has agreed less and less on topics since the early 1970s. Number two, we can see through Pew polls that people who identify as Democrat and Republicans have shifted farther and farther away from each other. And thirdly, we can all feel this. Wherever we turn, it seems to be just so divergent. There seems to be two very unique sides with unique slogans that just chant at each other. So in this video, I want to explain why having an honest and humble conversation may be the most efficient way to change people's minds. I think there are three major factors that contribute to polarization. Factor number one, group polarization. This is where an individual is locked into an echo chamber where there is a lack of dissenting voices.
And as it turns out, I had no idea about digital echo chambers.
And from this safe, warm echo chamber cocoon, we lob verbal and emotional grenades.
Each side is right about certain things, but then it goes blind to other things.
We can see this through the media we consume. When we go to news, there is always a channel where we can digest the reality that we want to see.
That same target marketing algorithm that feeds you more of the products you like to buy also feeds you more of the news that you like to hear.
With social media, we get to choose what groups we are in.
In reality, right now, we know that 4 out of 5 of your Facebook friends have the same views, same ideological perspective, and we know that you're more likely to read or share news that you agree with.
And lastly, even our family and the people who we date tend to have the same political leanings as us.
And now that it's become this great moral divide, there's a lot of evidence that we're moving to be near people who are like us politically.
So if it's not the news, if it's not your social media, if it's not your friends or family, then where are you going to get your dissenting voices? Now, with the lack of dissent comes two major things that contribute to polarization. Number one, this could tend for a group to have more and more radical views. And number two, this leads to dehumanizing the other side.
We no longer care who these people are, where they come from, why they believe differently than we do, what their reasons are. We only want to destroy their perspective because they are wrong.
When you have this sense of relative anonymity, it's really easy to be more aggressive and dehumanizing.
We're more likely not just to say they're wrong or I don't like them, but we say they're evil, they're satanic, they're disgusting, they're revolting, and then we want nothing to do with them.
Factor number two is the grounding effect. This is where an individual becomes more defensive when confronted with empirical evidence that might suggest otherwise.
You know, it turns out that when we go to persuade somebody on a political issue, we talk like we're speaking into a mirror. We don't persuade so much as we rehearse our own reasons.
If you're evaluating evidence that your side is wrong, I mean, we just can't accept that. And so this is why you can't win a political argument if you are debating something. You can't persuade the person with reasons and evidence.
Simple conclusions out of complex issues and enter confirmation bias again, and you're getting information that you agree with and you're not seeing the other side.
This is why after a debate, both sides think they've won the debate. Even audience members that come into a debate with a preconceived notion leave the debate thinking that their side won. Factor number three is sensationalism. We live in a world where social media posts to YouTube videos, everything is trying to gain your attention. And rightfully so. Attention might be the most precious commodity we have today. But what this leads to is the act of people trying to fight for your attention in malicious ways.
Increasingly, the way elections are done is that each side tries to make the other side so horrible, so awful, that you'll vote for my guy by default.
One of the things that Facebook discovered when they realized they were under attack is that these bad guys would purchase advertisements and put them on the internet to try to divide and anger specific groups of people.
On the more inert side of the spectrum, there are YouTube videos, blog posts that use clickbait and they overpromise on what they are trying to deliver. On the more harmful side of the spectrum, there are entities that are trying to sow in distrust into our societies. For example, here's a case of the Internet Research Agency, otherwise known as the Russian troll farm.
The Internet Research Agency accounts during our own election were creating events. So they were holding rallies in the real world. So there was one event in 2016 where they set up 2 protests by 2 opposing groups. And you can actually go find the footage from this on YouTube. There's people with, White Lives Matter banners standing on one side of the street screaming at members of the Islamic Cultural Center who showed up to counter protest on the other side of the street.
All of these 3 factors lend to distrust in each other. Group polarization leads to us having more and more extreme views and dehumanizing the other side. With the grounding effect, people get more defensive when they see evidence to the contrary. And sensationalism is a catalyst that drives misinformation and sows in more distrust. I think that trust is in the center of all of this.
Respect is the key. Sitting down and talking, not necessarily agreeing, but respecting each other to air their points of view.
With these 3 factors, the most effective and efficient way to move forward in this polarized country is to have honest and humble conversations.
Personal relationships, I think, are probably the most powerful means we have. You can be disgusted by a group of people, but then you meet a particular person and you generally discover that they're lovely.
We owe it to one another and our country to reach out and try to connect. We can't afford to hate them any longer, and we can't afford to let them hate us either. Empathy and respect. Empathy and respect.
When folks can actually tell their story, explain their cause to someone in the other group, it changes the way they feel about that group. And it kind of gets at this idea that a barrier to reconciliation has been this feeling, this fear that I'm going to be ignored. We do know the antidotes. We do know that human contact actually reduces prejudice. We do know that when someone in your group actually has a friend in the other group, that helps.
Have conversations in communities with community members on these more difficult issues, and to try to reintroduce a sense of nuance and complexity into their understanding of these issues that have become oversimplified and polarized.
The most important thing to do is to change people's minds. And for us to do that, we have to repair our respect for each other and create this trust, and then have conversations.
When you choose to stand knee-deep in discomfort, that is the single best thing you can do to become a more effective leader and a greater agent for change.
To actually overcome this is to have courageous conversations with difficult people. People who do not see the world the same way that you see the world.
Take the time to sit down and talk with your adversaries. You will learn something and they will learn something from you. When 2 enemies are talking, they're not fighting, they're talking. It's when the talking ceases that the ground becomes fertile for violence. So keep the conversation going.
Thanks for watching this video, but at the end of the day, I don't know. So please let me know what you think.